It's way back in the woods.
All right, I call this City Board of Director meeting for March 3, 2020 to order. Roll call.
Sappington,
Here.
Smiley,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Bristler,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Carroll.
Would you please stand as Director Sappington leads us in the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for the awesome day that you gave us to enjoy. And it was such a wonderful day to see people out and around our beautiful city. And I just pray that as board members tonight that we're open, that we listen and we know and understand what the needs of our city is. I pray that you lay on our heart what, if there's circumstances that we need help with. And I just pray a blessing over this place tonight, and may good work be done in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening to the one or two folks who have joined us since we've had our workshop. Board, you have each received a copy of the workshop meeting of February 18, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, we will vote on the motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is approved. You also received the copies of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 18, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Before we move into public input, I want to remind everyone here to silence any electronic devices you may have so that you don't disturb someone who might be addressing the board or has gone to sleep. If they've gone to sleep, we want to let them sleep. That's fine. All right. This is the time in our meeting on our agenda that we have we call public input, and this is the time when the public may address any city business before this board that is not listed on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to address the board, please come forward, state your name and address. Being none, we will move forward with our regularly scheduled items. First up is purchase agreement, Eastside Rural Water Reimbursement District buyout in the amount of $70,948.48. Philip?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. And I've tried to provide you with the history of the Eastside Rural Water District in my staff report, so I'm not going to necessarily go through everything, but this all began in about 2005 when a developer came to the city at that time and asked to have the city provide water service to a development over off Bill Young Road close to Fairmont Road, and the city staff at the time said, yes, we can provide it. The developer bought the property. Then it was determined that the city couldn't provide the water service to them, and the only way to get the water service was to provide a connection from the Benton, Washington Rural Public Water Authority, or what's affectionately known as two-ton water, and provide that through a private investment in extending those water lines to that subdivision. The map that's on the screen shows you the city limits. The red line is the Eastside Rural Water District boundary, and then the subdivision that we're talking about is the Forest Hills subdivision. The north, the vertical blue line is the 2-ton water line, and the small horizontal line is about 3,000 feet of an 8-inch line that was constructed and installed to provide water service to the Forest Hills subdivision. So the developer at the time, Mr. Tony Morris, went through the process of coming to the city, and the city in 2007 authorized a resolution 14-07 authorizing the city administrator to negotiate a water service contract with the developer. The intent of that service contract was the developer would pay for the extension of the water line, and then set up a reimbursement district so that everybody that tied to that line reimbursed a proportional share back to the developer. The city owns the line, but the developer owns the right through the water to that runs through that line. And that was in early 2007. Later in 2007, in September 2007, the board approved Ordinance 0724, which created the East Side Rural Water District and established water rates for that district. The one thing that we have not been able to find, and we have, I've looked for it for the last 5 years, is the agreement, the contract, the water service contract with the developer of Forest Hills for the city servicing Forest Hills, and we'd never found that. In 2015, back in 2011, after the subdivision was developed, it was not financially successful, and the developer ended up delivering a deed back to the bank and turned over the subdivision and its infrastructure back to the bank. And at the time, the bank informed the city that it owned the subdivision, including the water lines within the subdivision, and the bank did not want the city to collect the reimbursement fees. In early 2014, the developer filed suit against the city and the bank, stating that he still had the rights, he still retained the rights to the water line, the transmission line owned by the East Side Rural Water District, and that the city should have been collecting fees for all the connections within Forest Hills subdivision. And ultimately, the court found that that was true. When the developer turned over the warranty deed to the bank, he didn't turn over his rights to the transmission line of the East Side Rural Water District. And in the end, the city, part of that lawsuit, the developer also asked for he had a claim for reimbursing of the total unaccounted for outstanding debt for that water line. According to the court records, the transmission line was $162 some odd thousand, and at that time the developer had only collected a little over $10,000, and he had asked for $152,000 from the city, under the theory that the city had not kept records of who connected, which the city did have records and was able to prove to that. So that part of the lawsuit was thrown out by the court. However, the lawsuit, which was settled in 2015, the court did find that the developer only transferred his interest in the subdivision to the bank, not his interest in the East Side Rural Water District's transmission line, and the city was required to pay almost $16,000 to the developer for connections that were made where the city did not collect the reimbursement fee. The court, as I stated, dismissed the claim for the outstanding debt, and in all, the city paid over $46,000 defending that lawsuit. And it was a lawsuit that, even when I got here and tried to figure it out, it seemed like that the city should win. Since the time of the lawsuit, we have been collecting and reimbursing the developer $1,750.22 for every connection that's made within the Forest Hills subdivision to this subdivision's line, which is connected to the East Side Rural Water District's line. And as of February of this year, the records indicate the total amount reimbursed to the developer has been just over $68,000, leaving just under or just over $94,500 in an outstanding debt. One of the things that came up just recently is the fact that when Mr. Morris built the transmission line, in exchange for a water line easement across private property, he granted a owner of a 50-acre parcel a 1-inch water tap. This 50-acre parcel is right there at the intersection of Bill Young Road and Fairmont Road, just in the southwest corner of that intersection. And that 1-inch tap provided water service to a barn and 1 or 2 apartments that were in that barn. In 2019, a new house was built on that same 50-acre parcel, and the water line service was extended to service the house. Mr. Morris is of the opinion that the city should have collected $1,750 for that. We did our research and found that, in our opinion, we're not required to collect the $17.50 for that. The city code requires that when a new parcel is developed, it has to have a separate water service. There wasn't a new parcel. City code states that each contributing owner, which all the owners in Forest Hill subdivision are classified as a contributing owner to a reimbursement district, that they must pay a reimbursement into the reimbursement fund before they get a new service or before an existing service is expanded. In our opinion, the 1-inch water line was not expanded. It was extended, but the capacity of water was not expanded in any way. And the state plumbing code allows for buildings owned by the same entity on the same property to not be on separate meters. And then finally, in the lawsuit, the judge ruled that the developer is owed the reimbursement fee for each connection made to the transmission line, and there was no new connection. Now, Mr. Morris and myself and Jay, the city attorney, Jay Williams, both, at least Jay and I, have a different opinion than Mr. Morris. In my discussions with Mr. Morris, his attorney is recommending that he file suit against the city. And it's not as simple as just writing a check for $1,750, because if you do that, the precedent that it sets is that every time somebody, adds a pool onto an existing 5/8 inch or 3/4 inch meter, that there should be another payment made, and that's not the way that we've interpreted it. And the problem is there is no agreement of how all this should be done. So in my discussions with Mr. Morris, I asked him, what would it take to just have the city buy you out of your interest in the East Side Rural Water District? In my opinion, it's a very odd situation. I think it should have been done better in 2007, and I'm not here to rehash that, but every time we turn around, there's a difference of agreement and a threat of a lawsuit. Mr. Morris originally said that, he's got $94,000, almost $600 outstanding in debt. That's what he wanted. We had a discussion about the fact that it's going to take a few years to get that. What would you take? He ended up asking for $80,000, which was just under 85% of that amount. I told him I still thought that was too high, and I said that I would propose to the board that the max would be 75% of that outstanding debt, which is basically at $71,000, just under $71,000. And after numerous conversations, Mr. Morris indicated to me that he would take $71,000 for that outstanding debt that he is owed. In my opinion and in Jay's opinion, we both believe it's in the city's best interest to do it. It will prevent future lawsuits. If you disagree, which is your right, it is my opinion that we will likely end up in a lawsuit, and we would likely pay $20,000 to $30,000 in defending that lawsuit, and whether or not we would win is up to a judge and or a jury. I do know that there are approximately 25 to 27 undeveloped lots remaining in the subdivision, and some of those lots are owned by existing residents within the subdivision, so I don't believe we'll see 25 or 27 new houses. But assuming no more than 5 or 7 of those are owned, which is what I counted today, assuming there are 20 lots left, that's about $35,000 as that subdivision builds out. So that's halfway there to this buyout amount, and I would suspect that any savings from a lawsuit would cover the rest. Also, as you see, the East Side Rural Water District is about 2,000 acres. I don't think that one 8-inch line is going to service all 2,000 acres, but it has the capacity to serve more development than the Forest Hill subdivision. So there could be a future subdivision or future development out there that could tap into that line, and that 8-inch line will serve more houses than what's in the Forest Hill subdivision. So any future extension of that line, a developer would have to pay a reimbursement fee, and over time I think the city would recoup its money. It might take 10 years, it might take 5, depending on how fast growth is happening in Benton County. If you were to agree to this buyout, what we would do is sit down and Jay would write a buyout agreement requiring the developer and their successors and heirs to relinquish all interest in the East Side Rural Water District transmission line, as well as relinquishing all rights to file suit against the city regarding the East Side Rural Water District. And it's not a budgeted dollar amount. If you do agree with this, it would be a budget amendment that would come back at the end of the year when Christina brings back all the adjustments. So I have to be up front with you about that. So it would be a budget amendment. It would come out of, if you were to approve it, it would come out of the utility fund balance, which currently has about $15.5 million in unrestricted funds in it. So it's a large fund. It's a lot of money still to buy out, but it is my opinion that doing so will keep the city out of a lawsuit. Whether or not we win or lose that lawsuit, I would not guess as to that, but it will save, in my opinion, attorney's fees. And with that, staff is available for any questions.
Thank you, Philip. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of Philip and staff. Thank you, Philip. That was a good explanation. Broke it down, made it a lot more palatable.
It's a very complicated project.
Yes.
And I know it's a big ask, but it's a very complicated project and issue, and it will continue to be this for years to come until either the $94,000, almost $95,000 is paid back to Mr. Morris or something else is done.
Yes. Carol?
I think this, as Philip said, I think this will continue to be maybe not a nightmare, but it will continue to come up. I know that when the first lawsuit was proposed, I think we all thought that the city would come out favorably. We didn't, and it cost us some money, and I'm in favor of paying him off and settling this and start afresh.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Bob.
I tend to agree with, excuse me, Director Smiley. I don't think we're in a position with not being able to prove some of the facts because of a lack of a document. We're not in a very good position to argue too much, and given the squirrely ways some of these court decisions come out these days, I'm not sure that we want to put the city in the position of fighting that and maybe losing it for not only 70,000 but damages and whatever they can award. So that would not be a pleasant thing. I tend to agree with this staff recommendation.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Marla?
I think it's a mess that needs to be cleaned up. It's sad that we got in that situation, but if there's no paper to show what took place, if we had the possibility of having an income from some of the other connections that are made, recoup some of our losses, I think it's best that we try to get that ownership.
No further questions. Do I have a motion
Mr.
to
Mayor?
approve? Yes.
Move that we approve the buyout of the East Side Rural Water Reimbursement District in the amount of $70,948.48.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve?
One quick, Mr. Mayor, do we need to make accommodations for if that amount's going to change? Or is that the amount?
The 70,000, that's the amount.
Okay, all right.
That's I mean, from my perspective, buying him out at the full amount is not the right thing to do. So that was why I offered something less, and I thought 75 was enough to get his attention and enough lower amount that it would be appropriate. But that's, if he comes back and asks for more money, that you haven't approved more money. So
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Good question. Any other comments, questions? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call?
Wiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is a professional services agreement with Community Development Department for a comprehensive plan update with Freeze and Nichols, Inc. in the amount of $235,000. Don Clark?
Thank you, Board. Mr. Mayor, Board, Don Clark, Community Development Director. So before you tonight is a contract for services with Freeze and Nichols to develop and update the city's comprehensive plan. So I'll start off with explaining what a comprehensive plan for those that may be with us that don't understand.
Now, before you get into it, could we get the screen for those at home or whatever changed to reflect what we're discussing here, just in case somebody tunes in? Thank you. I'm sorry, Don.
Not a problem. All right. So a comprehensive plan is a critical roadmap to guide the decisions of the community's future development. It helps answer the questions including what are the community assets and opportunities? What are the community needs and challenges? What are the community's visions for the future? What are goals, policies, objectives, and actions to help us achieve those visions? A comprehensive plan allows the community to be more proactive than reactive. You know, quite frankly, we just consider it to be a roadmap to community development, is why we feel that the comprehensive plan is important. So I also remind you that updating the city's current comprehensive plan was a 2019-2020 board goal. The current comprehensive plan for Siloam Springs was adopted in 2008 and is currently 12 years old. The plan in 2008 was an update of a comp plan that was originally written in 1996 by a firm. The 2008 plan was written and updated by staff internally. The plan needs to be updated to account for the city's growth and land use pattern changes within the last decade plus, since the last one has been updated. With the current growth, it is wise to look at the future land use and determine the best areas for growth while also continue to retain our quality of life that we currently have. The staff and the current Planning Commission chair went through our standard RFQ process, or request for qualifications, and we interviewed 3 firms. And of those 3 firms we interviewed, in the end, we believe that Freeze and Nichols to be the top choice for Siloam Springs for the reason that they've worked in other areas similar to our size and dealing with growth similar to ours. The new plan will cover a wide range of topics and is intended to be comprehensive in scope, looking at public facilities, land use, housing and density, community character, public infrastructure, transportation, and many other areas. During this process, there will be we will host several public engagement meetings to determine the community's vision of the future. Also, joint workshop with the Board of Directors and the Planning Commission will be conducted to keep you apprised of where we are in our progress of moving through with the plan. A steering committee of diverse backgrounds, recommended by staff and appointed by the mayor, will provide advice, guidance, and assistance to the staff and consultants throughout the process to ensure that a broader community outreach to the residents and businesses is taking place. Also included in the contract in the services is economic development. And the reason that we are including that is that the economic development sole purpose is to ground the plan to make sure it's realistic and attainable as we move forward. So essentially what is being planned that we can actually do as we move forward in the years to come. So it's not something that we couldn't reach, fiscally. Staff feels hiring a consultant is the best strategy as the firm is equipped with the necessary tools and can do an excellent plan. And we're reflecting these in the vision for the community for years to come. The plan for the comprehensive, the fee for the comprehensive plan is $207,000 with the additional $28,000 for the economic development component, which brings it to $235,000. This is included in the 2020 budget and community development's professional fees line item. The plan will probably take approximately 18 months to complete. Ultimately, the final adoption of the plan will be brought back before the board for approval. With that, staff is recommending approval and stand ready for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and/or questions of staff. Yes,
I am
Carol.
really glad to see that we're beginning on this. I think it's very important that we have that. I'm glad that we are including the economic development in here. And I just want everybody to know that the community is this is a community-wide effort, and that they are going to be involved. I know that there was a lot of meetings when we did it previous, and there was a lot of the community people involved. So I think this is good. How long out do you think, what's the range for this?
I would probably say around 18 months is what we're planning for. It could be, or as far as like,
How long are we planning out?
we would probably say 30 years, although that we would think that it would probably, it's 30 years, but we would want it to be revisited every 10 years or so to make sure that it's on course with what we were projecting 10 years
I
previously.
think the other one was called 2030, wasn't it?
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Marla?
the 2030 plan, I've been reading over it. Are you going to make modifications to it? Or are they going to start and just from new?
It's a great question. So obviously, because of the time that was put in the other one, we want them to use that as the bones of working and going forward. It's basically kind of an update to that, if you will, but using what we're seeing today as far as, the growth. One example I would give you is the future land use map. Before, Philip said it before, when he came in, asked where the growth pattern is. I think we said here, but now we're starting to see it trend in other places. So we need to make sure that those areas are looked at and everything is been, evaluated as best as we can to get us through the next 10 or 15 years.
I was really impressed with all the information. It's like, I didn't know this existed till just, when it came up on the agenda item.
Yes.
And it's really very interesting. And I know that our staff that put it together had to do a lot of work, and I just hated for it to be lost. I think that it's good bones to build on.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mindy?
hey, I have, a couple things. The first, probably no one else read this, but I just thought I would mention it. Under number 7, in your list of what the tasks are, you talk about the economic development plan, which you just mentioned. And then the next sentence is, this is a separate fee/subcontract. I first read that as, so that's additional, but I understand it's not additional, that it's a separate subcontract, but no extra fee. So just wanted to clarify that in case anybody else had a question, maybe not. And then I had a question about a statement made in the memo about the city experiencing exponential growth in the housing and commercial sectors. And if I could just get some clarification on what that's based on, because I know the census numbers are not growing as exponentially. I know we have experienced a lot of growth in housing. We've approved a lot of housing developments and lots of commercial developments coming up. But according to the census from 2010 to 2018, we had about a 12% growth. Before that, from 2000 to 2010, we had a 38% growth. That was huge. So in those 10 years, yes. But then in the next 8 years, about 12%, I understand we estimate about 18,000 for 2020. So that's about a 6% increase over where we are now. So I'm assuming those are sort of, I'm not talking apples to apples, apples to oranges, but can you just help me understand what that's based on?
Absolutely. So, even what you said in housing, just in the preliminary plats that's come before this board in the last 14 months, which is, we're saying it'll take us 18 months to get this ready. In that last 14 months, I think we've yielded up to 848 potential dwelling units. So again, when we're looking at, the growth, we're talking what we're seeing and the potential for that growth. Also, I looked at our daytime population has also went up, and again, traffic counts on 412 are continuing to go up. So that growth, may not be always just a snapshot of just population, but just of the area and the different things. More jobs are added, the more time, the more we have, people in our city during the daytime population. So when we talk about public infrastructure and making sure we're keeping up with that side of things, as well as housing, I think that's what we meant by that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor. So additional to that would be just in Benton County alone, the amount of families that are coming in. And so if we look at that general growth, while you're reaching out that far, we've got players in the corridor. They're about to have a major explosion, and we're all going to be impacted. Siloam is an excellent bedroom community. We have a lot of commuters to the corridor, and I think that's where we're starting to see. It's pretty obvious that's where it's coming from. So I appreciate it. And another one along this, and I don't think it's in this line, and correct me because I feel like I'm wrong. This does not, these folks aren't encompassed or involved in form-based coding, are they? Or is that our senior planner? Oh, you like that one?
That's a great question. If you recall,
I don't.
well, I'm getting ready to say, not too long ago, Philip came to the board and asked that we adjust, the board's goals, because one of those was form-based code, but we wanted to get this going first. We think that with this would lead us into those other areas with form-based code and the potential to get us to a unified development code, which is something that we would like to see us do. But I think we have to get this going first, and that will help lead us to it. Now, in us interviewing and talking to consultants, we also took into consideration who could also provide that, in the future for us, when we get to that point for, unified development code or helping us, write the code according to the comp plan and looking at form-based codes.
Philip.
So the comprehensive plan, you have to remember, is a guide, and it will direct things that need to occur in the zoning code and in the city's code and in various things, not just zoning. But it will help us identify what those next steps are. And part of that, Director Burns, is, as Don said, we would like to see maybe that unified development code, and part of that being a form-based code. And then I want to change the terminology. As Don was saying, it dawned on me that we're using the term economic development for this separate piece, and it's really not an economic development piece. It is a fiscal analysis of the comprehensive plan. Cities sometimes adopt comprehensive plans, and they're just like when I go to a steakhouse, my eyes are bigger than my stomach, and I get a really big steak, and I can't eat it all. And cities have a tendency to do the same thing with the comprehensive plan. We want all this, we want all this, we want all this, but our resources will never cover that over the next 20 years. And we want, what we thought was very important was, we go through the comprehensive plan, but we need somebody to stop and say, let's look at the next 20 to 30 years of your growth and your financial resources, and can you physically do this plan? Does it make sense? And that's really what that fiscal component is. And we thought that was very valuable to add that additional $27,000, $28,000 to that, so that we can say it's fiscally sound. It's not something that's just pie in the sky. We can actually do this. So I just want to, you and I said the economic development, and then it just dawned on me that it's really a fiscal analysis.
Absolutely. And we've been, that's what took us a little time to get here, because we've been making sure we were very clear that we didn't want the economic development component of somebody to come in and say, here's all your opportunities. Basically that fiscal part of looking at the plan and make sure that we can, obtain what we're saying we want to do over the next 10 to 15 or 30 years.
Carol.
I just thought of one thing. We're going to be in the midst of a new census. Does that benefit this, and will those numbers be out in time? Does it make any difference?
The numbers will come out at probably about the time that we're wrapping this up. So we can incorporate it, but we won't have the numbers in the beginning.
Mayor?
Carol.
I move that we approve the professional services agreement contract with Freeze and Nichols, Inc. for the purposes of updating the city's comprehensive plan in the amount of $235,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Being none, we'll vote. Excuse me, we'll vote on the motion to approve. Roll call?
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next, we move on to ordinances. And what we normally refer to as the Ben Road Show. Tonight is a perfect example of that. So, Ben is here to present ordinance first ordinance 20-03, third reading, vacation of an unnamed right-of-way and easements at the 300 block of Highway 59 North. Ben?
Yes, greetings and thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I'm Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. Yes, before you is the third reading of the right-of-way closure ordinance. As a reminder, this ordinance closes the unused right-of-way that's in the airport subdivision on Highway 59. Staff has not received any additional comments on this, and we remain supportive of the ordinance, and we are available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Ben, any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. If there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance, or to suspend ordinance 20-03.
Mr. Mayor,
Carol?
I move that we place ordinance number 20-03 on its third reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion to suspend? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve the suspend. Roll call?
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-03, an ordinance vacating and abandoning all rights-of-way and easements within the airport addition, City of Siloam Springs.
Philip? I'll now entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 20-03.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to adopt? Being none, we will vote on the motion to adopt. Roll call?
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Ordinance is approved. Motion is approved. Ordinance 20-03 is adopted. Ben?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor, Board. Before you for Ordinance 2004 is the second reading for staff's request to update the city's business code with respect to mobile vending units or food trucks. As a reminder, staff is updating the regulations on tents and parking for larger dining areas, and we also addressed vendors in the GI zone and increasing the time unit for vehicles parking from 45 to 90 days. Staff has not received any additional comments since the first reading, and we are recommending approval and stand by for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience on this ordinance? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments or questions of staff.
I have a question. I think I
Lisa?
misunderstood something. Sorry, Mayor. I think I misunderstood something the last time we discussed this. I think Mindy asked about if it's on private property, does the 45 to 90 days, how does that work?
Well, all the units that are parked, they, regardless of where they're located, can only be stationary currently for 45 days. So what this proposal is doing is increasing that to 90 days. So, if you're asking how it's enforced, we have a permit application that comes in when these are approved, and code enforcement or whomever will go out and check, and if it's been past the 45, we would ask them to move, or certainly or document if they happen to go on a weekend to a festival or fair and they're off site and they come back, then that 45 days starts, the clock starts over again for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Marlon?
Ben, I have unhooked and loaded one of these up, and I think that it's going to be, it's sad for us to say, okay, you've been here 90 days, now go away for 7 days and come back and you have 90 more. That's going to put a lot of pressure on staff. If we can just give them a year like we do other businesses, and we won't have to be riding range on them and making sure that they're, you know, you've got 1 day left and you've got to go away for a week, is what I read in there. You know, if you leave a location for a week, you can come back and spend another 90 days. I don't see the importance of leaving for 7 days if you're going to come right back and spend another 90.
Yes, Lisa?
How do other cities do it? Like they have these food lots. Do those people have to move and come back?
Yes, I mean, most cities have time limits. The reason for that is if you didn't, they essentially become permanent installations, and they go around the building codes. You know, otherwise we would just require them to build a restaurant. So, you know, if you don't have the time limit, essentially it becomes a permanent restaurant at a location. And so that's why we have that to allow the fluidity of these units, so they can, and many of them do want to go. I mean, most of them don't stay parked that very long because they want to go to other festivals or fairs or things in the area. So when they leave, that time clock starts back.
Do they notify you, hey, we left over the weekend, we came
They're
back?
supposed to keep records.
Oh, they keep records and that's
Yes,
what
we
you
ask them to
okay.
do that. Yep.
So these other cities, when you've seen those lots that I'm talking about, those people move and then come back?
I believe they're mobile food trucks. So yes, I mean, I can't speak to every city, but
I didn't know if there was like a zoning where somebody owns a piece of land and says, okay, this is just a mobile food truck
So
section.
it's both. There are some cities that have an area that are specifically for mobile food trucks, and it may be city-owned or privately owned. I mean, if the two that come to mind is, one is in downtown Rogers at the old gas station. One is on Highway 71 just north of Fayetteville on the east side. I don't know for sure that they require them to move or not, but the idea is, you know, from here, we don't have a place that they can set up permanently. And so what staff was trying to do today, it's 45 days, and we're trying to give them more, whether it's 90 or 120. But Ben is correct that you need to have a provision that they don't become permanent unless you have a specific place for them and you're going to let them go. And then even if you let them become permanent and it's a city-owned facility, we're going to have to do some sort of lottery to who gets in, and then that's the end of that. But these are community amenities, but they're also mobile, and they're intended to go and come. And it's the question of what is the time. Ben, this has been in place since 2014, and it's been 45 days
since then.
And it's not really been an issue for staff, and it's been maybe an issue once for one or two vendors that I know about that had 2 units and they only moved one. They didn't move the other one. But we're trying to broaden that. So if the board wants to make it 120 days, I think staff would not have anything from there. But we felt doubling it to 90 days. If down the road, if that becomes a problem, we can always bring in an additional amendment and make it 120 days or 270 days, or if the board wants to go 365 days. The more you go, the longer time you let them stay there, chances are the longer time you need to say that you have to move from one spot to the next. So it's that balancing act that we were trying to do at that time. So.
Yes, Lisa?
I guess,
Remember when this came up?
I've got Lisa.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought you said me.
No, Lisa.
so the reason I ask these questions is because I actually had somebody say, what if I bought a piece of land in Siloam? you two will probably be, and they say, I want to have nothing but mobile trucks on it. So would they come back and ask for a special, would it even have to do with this, or would they be asking for a special zoning?
Well, I mean, we already have that. The corner of Alpine and Mount Olive is privately owned, and that owner uses that for food trucks. So those food trucks are subject to the 45-day
Oh,
rule.
they still have to move, okay.
Yes. Yeah, so if someone privately owns a lot, we need to check, make sure there's parking and areas for customers and things like that. But yes, that would, and it had the correct zoning, of course. Then, yeah, they would be able to park there for 45 days. But with this change, it would change to 90.
They still have to move.
They would still have to move, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
Well, when this first came up on food vending trucks, there was quite a discussion, and I remember there was a lot of investigating. We brought food vendors in to talk to them. There was some open meetings, and that is when they decided, and they were all favorable to the 45 days. Because I personally don't want to see them as a permanent. I mean, I like food vending trucks, but they're also competing with those that have paid money for a permanent building. So there's a balance to that. So I like the 90 days. I'm willing to go with that. I think that's a good compromise.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
My
Molly.
concern is just staff's going to have to, go around and check. You say that the mobile food vendors keep their own record. Well, I'm just saying it's not going to matter if it's 10, 45, 90. If they're keeping their own record and they know and we watch, it seems kind of like so much work for the staff to say, your time's up, leave, come back. Do they have to submit a new plan? What if another vendor submits a plan for that parking spot they are in while they're gone for those 7 days? It seems just like a 1-year license it'd do the same thing. You could write the rules in it. It's just that they're still keeping track of it and they know they have to leave and move around. And if you have one of those, yes, we were busy every weekend, 2 and 3 different locations. So, yeah, they're going to be moving them. But let's make it as easy for us to operate as we can. And if the 90 days is what you want, that's fine. It's just if they have to keep coming back and submitting new plans and there gets competition for parking, I'm just looking forward.
Mr. Mayor,
Well, I think he.
well,
were
this
you
is
asking
related to
were
that
you asking
question.
a question of
Was there a
Marla?
question?
Were you asking a question of Ben particularly?
I'm just talking.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
I get
I
free
want to make sure if
time.
you had a
I'm
question,
just
you were going
talking.
to get it answered before I moved on.
But
Okay.
that's just my thoughts. Of being a mobile food vendor for a while, I'm just, there's a lot of work. And it costs a lot of money to go to festivals and to set up. And they're not making a lot of money being in one place. But I just want to make it easier for staff.
Mindy?
well, and that was my question. Has it been a challenge for staff with the every 45 days to keep up with it? Because now it seems like you're reducing that by half by going to 90 days.
Yeah. I haven't been made aware of any complaints from staff that this has been an issue enforcing in the last 6 years.
Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
So the only one in Siloam since we passed this, the threat was we would impose on brick and mortar that have made the investment that Director Smiley just mentioned. We know in Siloam that's not true. There is no threat. So that's the end of that conversation. The one on Ashley, there's only one trailer that has stayed there for a long period of time that has been successful, and it's because they serve a certain type food that people like on occasion. And most of these food vendors are traveling around establishments that sell beverages that you can't have as a small child. These are known facts. So it's not a problem, and unless you travel to the corridor and go to places like the Hauler and get on Facebook and follow food trucks. So if you're part of that group and they're there, the benefit that we're seeing is that most of these folks that come here stay 2 or 3 days or a weekend, and they move on. They have a following. And if you go out to these establishments, you'll meet people from Springdale and Rogers. They turn you on to other food trucks and talk about other gourmet folks. And the ones that are successful end up in a brick and mortar. I think the end game on this is, to have some more brick and mortar fill in some of these facilities downtown. But we have to physically participate. And the whole point of passing this is to catch up with times and be progressive, but it was also to encourage Siloam to eat locally. And the part of development of our core development downtown is when you're on 412, hey man, make a left, make a right, and come on downtown and check out what we got going on. And it was part of our economic development. And so you're on the right direction. Staff's on. I'm not going to say I'm in tune or the pulse of that particular group of folks, but I will say I feel like I frequent that more because I know my wallet's a little lighter when I leave. I'm not dropping names, but there's some really good food trucks in Siloam. And you don't have to drink beverages. You can go to these establishments and have sarsaparilla, iced tea, and water. It's just a good vibe. You're doing great work. Thanks for updating and working with those folks.
Yes, Lisa.
Can I ask one more question? Have you seen a growth since this has been implemented of food trucks in Siloam Springs?
That's a good question. I'd say about 10 years ago or so, we started seeing them come in, which is, not long after we came up with the ordinance. And then I think the big growth explosion was when the Alpine lot was made into an exclusive food truck place. And then I think others caught on after that, and we've seen them pop up other places. But yeah, it's been a trend, a nationwide trend, I think starting the last 10, 15 years or so, yeah.
Right. Any further comments? Carol?
I move that we place ordinance number 20-04 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Or suspend, excuse me? Being none, we'll vote on the motion to approve the motion. Roll call?
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-04, an ordinance amending Chapter 22 of the Municipal Code with respect to mobile food vending.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Next is ordinance 20-05, first reading, amending Chapter 54 Land Use Code, final plats. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. Yes, before you is a code update to the land use code on the final plat review process in Chapter 54. As you may recall from the joint workshop held with the Planning Commission last December, the city administrator asked for feedback on the possibility of allowing final plats to go directly to the board in cases where the final plats are identical to an already approved preliminary plat permit. The proposed code change still requires legal notice, and it also exempts cases where the final plat is the first project submitted to the city, or in cases where the final plat differs from the approved preliminary plat for some reason. For cases where the final plats are a new project, that's when there are basically no street or water lines proposed. Those permits will still first go before the Planning Commission as a final plat. We believe this change will help expedite the review process. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposed ordinance, and they are recommending approval along with staff. With that, we are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments or questions from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to staff, to the board for comments and or questions of staff. know we had discussion on it whenever it's been discussed, as Ben said, so maybe if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to suspend.
I
Yes,
move
Carol.
that we place ordinance number 20-05 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
So, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
So I know we don't like to do this very often, but we had a great meeting, long conversation. You know, can we just do all three on this one without objection?
That's your pleasure. I know we don't normally do that, so sometimes we give 2 readings or 1, but the staff, Ben, do you see any?
I don't mind doing 2, but I would like to do 2.
Yeah.
And then do another one.
I think
By that?
from staff's perspective, I think unless you've got an emergency clause added to the ordinance, 2 readings is at 2 times, and then second and third would be appropriate.
We've kind of set that up. This board has the last few years done it that way, and that way
Mayor,
we
I'm aware of
eliminate-
that,
know.
but I knew if I brought this up at the next meeting, we'd get them both knocked out of the way. I was on the board on that time. Thank you, sir. I'm not real
You're
smart,
gonna make
but
the motion in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
All right. Then we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion, I think, right, Brad?
I feel confident that we just, yes, sir.
Okay. That being said, we'll vote on the motion. Roll call.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-05, an ordinance amending Chapter 54, Land Use Code of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code with respect to the final plat review process.
Next is ordinance 20-606, first reading, amending chapter 102 zoning for automobile sales.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. For the second proposed code change, this restricts private sales of automobiles in non-commercial zones to match state requirements, limiting to no more than 5 sales in the previous 12 months. This change updates the use unit descriptions in the zoning code to cover this specific enterprise. In cases where there are more than 5 sales in 12-month period, the sales would have to occur at a retailer in a commercial zone. Since the Planning Commission's review, staff has reconsidered the weight class limitation as being too restrictive for individuals who may want to sell an RV or motorhome at their residence. The Planning Commission has been informed of this change, and we haven't received any comments back from them on that. Staff is supportive of the code change as presented, and we stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience? If not, if there are no comments, then I apologize. Did I even ask the audience on that last ordinance for comments? I don't remember whether I did or not. I apologize for that. So it's too late.
Are you asking comments from the board?
No, I am asking comments now on ordinance 20-06. Now that I'm asking for the board, there was none from the audience. So
Mr. Mayor, I do have one question. When we talk about the RVs and the motorhomes, it'll still be 5, a total of 5. in a
That's
year.
correct. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I move we place
is it
ordinance
4 or
number-
5?
It's 5 motor vehicles within a 12-month period, so of any kind.
So it's 5, when you sell 5, you're a commercial.
Right. I mean, if you're,
4 at your residence in a
Right, and then
12-month
anything
period. The
over.
5th one puts you into a commercial.
I believe so, yes, yeah.
Yes, yes, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Marla?
Ben, can you tell me the process for someone that wants to sell an automobile at their house? Do they contact the city, or they just park it on the side with the for sale sign and?
They put a Facebook ad or put a for sale sign in the car. They don't contact the city for that, no.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if we needed to come up with a permit like we do for garage sales or something. I don't like car sales in my neighborhood. I think it should be on a car lot or no for sale signs on them, and they can do them through Facebook or other media. But I don't like to see cars parked with for sale signs on them in a residential area. Period.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Brad.
you're not gonna like my house in April.
I don't care.
Mr.
You know,
Mayor?
I think you're spot on. There's no way, and most folks, if they're excessive, they report it. Either they get a hold of their board member or call code enforcement. Typically, my experience and I'm only speaking of my neighborhood or my ward specifically, is you're going through young adults. You have school cars, and they typically last about less than 72 hours in your driveway before somebody else picks up the school car. And then I see it around town. I see 2 still surviving that I thought would never survive. So
I've sold several. Well, I say several. I think I've sold 3 different vehicles through there.
I have too, but I didn't put for sale signs on them in my yard.
Mr. Mayor?
Just don't
Yes.
think a residential area is for selling like that, unless we're gonna, get a permit and say, we've got this car's permitted to be sold.
Mindy. Where did
Sorry.
Wendy?
I didn't hear it. You said you can, how are we going to monitor it? How are we going to monitor how many cars have been sold?
I believe it'd just be complaint driven. That's my understanding.
Lisa?
How long can they sit on, like if I have mine out for sale and I'm not driving it every day, how long can it sit on the street before?
Indefinitely. I mean, there's not, unless it's visibly immobile, like if it's on blocks or something, that would be a problem. But we don't have a limit on how long a car can park.
Yes, Carol.
But everybody keeps talking about yard. They're not placed in your yard. They should be in your driveway. They can't have it in their yard with a for sale sign, can they? I thought we didn't allow cars parked in your yard.
I believe at one point the board considered that ordinance, but I don't think it ever was enacted. No. Parking in the grass ordinance, I believe is what that was.
If you've got a single driveway, you would block your driveway. What would be the point of putting it there?
That's probably why they want to get rid of the car.
Yeah, that's probably, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So the reason behind this is a lot like Director Sappington described. I mean, we've had instances where people are selling, a car every month out of their residence. And I think regardless of whether we like it or not, because I'm in agreement with Director Sappington, but as Director Burns said, I think you have the right to sell your personal car from your residence. It's the question of how often. It's kind of the same way, even though we do issue permits for garage sales, I will promise you that not everybody gets a permit for their garage sale. But the idea is you can't have a garage sale every week, every month. I mean, there's a limit of 2 or 4 or something. There's some small number that, and we get complaints. If I had a garage sale every weekend, I'm sure that I would get a complaint from one of my neighbors. I'm looking down here on this side. But so it's the same sort of thing at this point of saying if you sell 5 or more, you're now in a commercial business, and you can't do that in any 12-month period, because we do have instances where, again, at a residence, people were selling a car. Every month they had a car for sale, and they had a car for sale. So we're trying to get a hold on that, and it will be complaint driven, because that's the only way that we won't be able. Some we might be able to see if it's on a regular basis. Some we probably know about, and we'll have to start paying attention to them now that there is a limit. But it's really an attempt to just try to say it is a residential area, and you can't be operating this commercial business out of that residence in that manner.
I have, Mr. Mayor, just one other comment. What if you have 5 different individuals living in the house, and do each of them get 5 chances? Is it per residence? Like if you have 4 boys living at John Brown and they each have a car and they all want to sell it. Is that 4 per one residence, 5?
How I would read the ordinance is because it's in the zoning code, it's based off of the address.
The address?
Yeah, not the individual.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is when I back out of my driveway, there's a car with a for sale sign parked in front of the fire hydrant 90% of the time. And so I want to know, and I want the public to know that it's up to us to monitor it. And if there's a complaint, let you all know it.
If it's parked in blocking the fire hydrant, please let me know, and we will ask the fire department and police department to handle that one.
Further comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Not even from Wendy?
Wendy. Where's Wendy?
Well, that's what I called her earlier, was Wendy.
Wendy.
You did that one on purpose, didn't you?
Yeah, I did this one on
I'm
purpose. I
Wendy,
did this
you're
one on
Mindy.
purpose.
Oh, I have been
If-
called.
if,
Hey, I'll hear this.
If the Director Hunt's gonna respond, I will set my timer.
Carol? Yes.
I move that we pass ordinance number 20-06 on the first reading, amending chapter 1, I can't find it on my thing, chapter 102 zoning / automobile sales.
Suspending rules and
Suspending the rules and reading title only.
Yes, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to suspend? Being none, we will vote on the motion to suspend. Roll call?
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Bristler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Excuse me.
You dropped your gavel before I said yes.
I heard you breathe. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
heard you take a breath. So you either had to say yes or no. It would have.
All right.
Motion is approved. Philip.
Ordinance number 20-06, an ordinance amending Chapter 102 zoning of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code with respect to motor vehicle sales in residential areas.
Thank you, Philip. Next is ordinance 20-07, first reading, amending section 102-21 zoning, rezoning R2 to PD 700 to block Highway 16 South. And unless staff has heard it differently, staff has requested this be tabled until the February 17 board meeting. How about March? I wrote February down here. Shame on me. How about March 17? Do I have a motion to the table?
So moved.
Second.
Carol? We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to table? Being none, we will vote on the motion to table. Roll call?
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Bristler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Right down. Motion, ordinance 20-07 is tabled into our next regularly scheduled board meeting on March the 17th. Resolutions. Philip?
Introduce it?
Oh, yes. How about that? Sorry. Resolution,
do that.
Resolution 13-20, supporting continuation of half-cent sales and use tax for state highways and bridges, county roads and bridges, and city streets and bridges. Philip. There's a lot of bridges in there, aren't there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. So in 2013, the state electorate approved a constitutional amendment, Constitutional Amendment 91, established a half-cent sales tax for improvements to state highways and bridges and county roads and city roads. And that is due to expire on June 30th, 2023. And the governor has come out proposing to extend that tax. And the State House passed a joint resolution 1018 providing for an amendment to the Arkansas Constitution that would extend that half-cent sales tax for another 10 years. So it's again a temporary tax. It's used for improving the highway system and county and city roads. It's intended to be on the ballot for November 2020, and the the money is divided as other highway money is divided. 70% goes to the state, 15% goes to counties, and 15% goes to cities. For the city of Siloam Springs, it means about $350,000 annually in street money that comes to the city from that half-cent sales tax. To Benton County, it's about just under $1.8 million that goes to the county. For cities and counties across the state, it's about $280 million that is created by that half-cent sales tax. So both the Arkansas Municipal League and the Arkansas Department of Transportation are asking cities to pass resolutions in support of the Arkansas House Joint Resolution 1018 to show that you support the continuation of the half-cent sales tax beyond 2023. It would be for another 10 years, and that then the city would continue to receiving that money, its share of that half-cent sales tax. So that's the resolution that you have before you, and staff will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to staff, to the board for questions and or comments of staff.
Mayor.
Brad.
Philip, so an example of that would be on the day we have to address East Main crossing Sager, that small creek. Is that state money on that bridge, or is that, how does that fall?
Well,
just curious.
It's it would be city money. We might apply for some state assistance.
Okay.
So it would probably be, hopefully a grant from the state. So we would have a little bit of, an 80-20 or 50-50 matching grant. It just depends on how we proceed to do that. But this money is available for streets and bridges and everything, really within the right of way. But mostly it's streets and bridges. And to give you an idea, we generally, on average, I think for the last 6 or 7 years, we have spent $1 million to maybe $1.2 million, and as high as maybe $1.5 million in street projects annually. So if you average that out, call it $1.2 million. This is about a fourth of that annual revenue that we put in the ground on making improvements to our streets.
Philip, I was trying to look something up, and I'm not questioning. I thought that I'd heard someplace that the vote was to be permanent, not put on 10-year.
I thought it was 10 years, but I could be
can't
wrong.
swear to that, but I thought that was part of it, so we wouldn't have to come up with this again. That was my.
I thought I had heard that it was
At
permanent.
AML, they said that.
Permanent?
That's what they said at AML.
I was maybe that's where I heard it, or yeah.
Okay,
We'll go into that assumption if that's all right.
It's fine.
If one way or the other.
I thought the resolution spoke to it that AML provided, but I don't see it. So it may be permanent. It may be my misinterpretation.
In the resolution,
I
that
don't
it
see
states
it,
10
yeah.
years.
It's not in the resolution.
I'll have to I can look it up and let you know. I can look up the House
Permanently
resolution.
extend.
Permanently
It says
extend?
a plan to ask Arkansas voters next year to permanently extend a half-cent sales tax for highways is heading to the state Senate.
Okay, thank you. Sorry,
No, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I didn't want to make sure everybody was clear on that, so if we walk away, somebody wouldn't say, well, it was only permanent or temporary or 10 years. So, yes, Carol.
I move that we approve resolution number 13-20.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on this motion? And it is vitally important to the city and the county. There's no doubt about it. And it is a new tax. And you can say it's a continuation of tax, but when you make it permanent, it is a new permanent tax. But it's something that the cities desperately need this thing, and our state highway department is so underfunded way that payment is set up off the fuel taxes that they need to know that they've got this kind of monies coming down the pike for a good long time here. Okay. Any further? If there's no further discussion, or do we have any comments from the audience? Did I ask that? I don't think I did. Y'all have, any of the 3 or 4 of you have any comments from the audience? Okay. Being none, I've turned it over to the board. We have a motion. All those in favor of, we will do roll call for this resolution 13-20. Roll call?
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Resolution 13-20 is approved. Motion is approved. Next is Resolution 14-20, Significant Development Permit for Arkansas State Convention at the 3600 South Lincoln address. Ben.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Just one moment for the overhead to come on. All right, there we go. Yes, so for your consideration, you're looking at a significant development permit for a new 9275 square foot bunkhouse at Camp Siloam. It's at 3600 South Lincoln Street. So this is the site plan showing the proposed structure. The existing bunkhouse at the camp was damaged by the October 21st, 2019 tornado. This proposed structure replaces that damaged structure. It will be located to the southwest of the new dining hall building. And there is ample pedestrian access, and parking is handled at the front entrance of the camp. Here you see the proposed south elevation. The building will be 1 story as shown. Construction will be stained wood siding with a rock base. Here is what the proposal will look like when placed on the overhead aerial photo. It will be on the south side of the creek or a small creek that goes to the property, and four smaller cabins will be taken down to make way for the new facility. And so finally here you see the site. This is looking to the east. So Highway 59 is in the back there on the background. So the 4 cabins that are going to be taken out are right here where I just circled. Landscaping is credited by the existing tree canopy and forest vegetation. With that, staff is recommending approval with no needed conditions, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Jason, you're here. You've been here a long time. Would you, before I turn it over to everybody else for comments, would you like to make a comment to the board or be available questioning? Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. I'm Jason Wilkie, with the Executive Director at Camp Siloam. I live at 3598 South Lincoln Street. This brings back good memories for me. I worked for the city of Jonesboro for 10 years, so a lot of fun to go through ordinances. But we will lose 125 beds as of the result of that loss of that bunkhouse with the tornado. That oak tree fell right through it. It's the second oak tree that's fallen through it. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Nobody was there, so timing of it was good. So this bunkhouse definitely improves both our capacity to host campers, but also the quality of our overnight accommodations. And so it'll be used for both summer camp, and then our retreat housing in the fall, winter, and spring will be much nicer because of this new bunkhouse. So we appreciate the upcoming approval, hopefully, of the bunkhouse. But I do want to just say, just real quick, just to compliment your planning department. They have done a great job working with us. Both the timetables that were outlined for us were very clear and reasonable for us, and just been a real joy to work with Ben and Brian and Randall. So working with the city of Jonesboro, I know how hard that can be, that job, but you guys did a great job. And then the other thing I want to mention was that in both storms, the one that happened in June, on June 23rd, and the October 21st storm, our electrical department just did an incredible job. I drove up North Lincoln in the middle of we had a cold week after the October 21st. Our electrical department was out there working in the cold all night on those power lines, and we were out of power for about 4 or 5 days. But John Bland came out and worked with us on kind of reconfiguring some things, helping us considering how to put things underground, and I'm just so grateful for our electrical department and what they do and how they performed in that storm. So anyway, just appreciate your consideration of this and appreciate all that you all do. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason, and we'll pass those comments on to staff. All right. Anyone in the audience have any comments to make? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. Yes, Carol.
Camp Siloam is my neighbor, and they're a very good neighbor. And we were within the area that needed to be notified. I am so glad to see this. We have wonderful experiences in the summertime, listening to the kids play, being in the pool, and everything that they do. So I am definitely in favor of this.
Thank you, Carol. Well, being no other comments, would you like to follow up?
I move that we approve Resolution 13, it's 14-20.
14-20. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Marla? That's actually in your ward, isn't it, Marla?
It is,
Yeah,
and I'm
okay.
excited. Memories.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve on Resolution 14-20. Roll call?
Isler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Motion is approved. Next is Resolution 15-20, amend certain development codes. Ben Rhodes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board, for your final planning item this evening for your consideration. You're looking at addressing some of the development permit application fees. The fees were last updated in 2014. Staff reviewed the current fees, and we've determined that the fees for rezoning and right-of-way closures do not fully cover the costs borne by the city when processing these permits. Unlike other development permits, the city clerk is required to publish a full copy of the ordinance in the local newspaper. So the average cost of publishing the rezoning ordinance is about $149. And a right-of-way closure ordinance, they typically are a little bit longer, run around $239. Staff is proposing an increase to the rezoning applications from $100 to $150, and the right-of-way closure from $100 to $200, which was a 100% increase. On the rezonings, we have worded the fee to cover the rezoning requests associated with annexations into the city. So if the property is being zoned for the first time, that fee would be applicable to that. Staff presented these fees to the development community, and no feedback was received. Staff recommends approval, and we stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to staff, to the board for comments and or questions of staff.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob?
Just wondered why, if we're trying to cover costs, we don't raise the right-of-way closure to $240 instead of $200.
I think we just were trying to keep it to less than 100% increase of what it is now, but we certainly would be open to.
Cover costs.
Well, on an average, you're right. It wouldn't cover it.
Hey, we're saying we're covering costs, but we're not covering costs. So we're going to cover costs or not cover costs.
Right.
I move that we amend that to be $240.
Well, we don't have a motion yet.
hold that until
Yeah.
you make, and
Yeah,
then
let's
make
get a
the
motion.
motion
Let's
to
make-
include that as an amendment to
Yeah,
the motion.
just make it in part of your motion when I'll just acknowledge you when I ask for a motion, okay?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Harlan.
Ben, thank you for including the comparisons from the other cities. As I was reading through that, I was thinking, man, I wonder what the other cities, and it just popped right up. So thank you for including that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Mr. Mayor,
Indy?
I'm just asking Director Coleman, so you're saying you're going to move, that we raise the cost to $240 for right-of-way in order to cover our city-borne costs under that fiscal impact? Is that what you're referring to? Well, then wouldn't we do the same thing for the rezoning? Because the rezoning cost is $148.92, but it says we're going to start charging $100. Is that, am I reading that right?
150.
150.
Scroll down to the last page.
This is an old iPad. Information changed.
Well, what I'm looking at says 100 for rezoning.
That's the current
That's-
fee.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Gotcha, sorry. We're good.
We're good.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments? If not, Bob, I'll entertain a motion, sir.
All right, now
To me,
back
yeah.
to it, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve revolution, yeah, okay. Resolution 1520, amending certain development fees to be amended to $240 for the right-of-way closure.
That
Second.
sounds like a good one to me, Lisa. Okay. I think you got it, Bob. Is there further?
It's just a bear having an accountant on the team.
Oh, I know. Well,
Thank you.
We left that just for you.
Yeah, actually, the staff talked about raising it, but they said, "Well, Bob's going to want to move it up, so let's just let him have the spotlight
last
on
two
that."
wrong
Okay,
today.
yes. All right. Any further discussion on the motion to approve as amended? Okay. Do we need a? Well, that was the motion was made. It was made with the amendment to the original motion was made in the original motion. So we have it. No further discussion. Any comments from the audience? I forgot to ask you. I keep forgetting to ask you all. There's so many of you. But anyway, being none, we will vote on motion to approve the amended resolution 15-20. Roll call.
Coleman,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Approved. Motion. Philip, staff reports.
So you have your January 2020 financials, as always. If you have any questions over those, feel free to contact myself or Christina. I have a fairly long administrator's report. The one thing I would like to report is we all remember the storms from October. One of the things that the city lost was our outdoor warning siren that was at the airport. And that siren is officially up and running as of today. It was tested and everything was good. All 8 sirens tested positively. We had people on the ground. They all rotated, but most importantly, it took a while to get that siren, the replacement in, but that has been done. So all the outdoor warning system is at 100%. As we all know, the U.S. Census is coming up. And I'm not going to go through everything that's on my administrator's report that you have in front of you, but I just want to point out some particular dates. March, you're going to start seeing that you're going to start seeing invitations to respond online or respond by phone. You're going to get reminder letters. Everybody in the city that has an address is going to get that invitation. Come late March, early April, you're going to get reminder postcards again. And then April 1st is officially Census Day, and by that date, everybody should have received an invitation to participate in the census. And after that, you're going to start seeing more reminders and eventually census workers going door to door for people who have not responded. If you're interested in being a part-time census taker, you can go to 2020 census.gov/jobs, 2020 census.gov/jobs, and be a part-time census taker. Also, I want the public to know that all census takers will have official ID cards with their name and their picture and their expiration date when they start going door to door. But the census is very important. We want everybody to be counted. And as you can see there, the census is looking at talking to college students in April because they count, even though they're only living here sort of part-time. They're a resident when they are here. And also looking at in late March, early April, trying to count all people who are homeless who also live here. And then I also need to report that the airport did receive the grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation to improve the taxiway lighting. That grant's $238,500. And then spring cleanup is being scheduled for the week of April 6th. So as we get closer to that, we'll remind everybody to start putting out your items for the spring cleanup, not before that Sunday, but as always, we get out a little early, but at least not before that weekend. And then the last thing I really wanted everybody to remember, and most of you know this, that city board elections are this year. So positions 5, 6, and 7, the at-large positions, plus the position of mayor, are scheduled to be election to be held at the general election on November 3rd. If there are more than 3 candidates, or more than 2 candidates running for either one of those positions, there will be a primary election on August the 11th. If someone, correct me, Mayor, I always try to have to refresh myself. If somebody gets 51%, then
50 plus 1
50
vote.
plus 1, then they're in. But if they don't get it, the 2 with the highest vote will go on to the general election. The filing deadline is May the 13th through noon, May the 28th. So the filing deadline is still a ways away. If anybody is interested in running for any of those positions, you need to just check with the city clerk and get your candidate package from her, and you need 50 signatures that are registered voters within the city, and that's what all it takes. And then you have to file that with the city between May 13th and noon on May the 28th. And then the last thing, in order to vote in the city elections, obviously you have to be a resident and you have to be registered to vote, and the last day to register is July 10th of this year. And that's all I have.
Philip, I don't know about you all, but I woke up this morning and turned Fox on, and first thing I saw was talking about the tornadoes in the Nashville area. I have some friends over there. I contacted them. At the time, there were, I believe, this was about 7 o'clock this morning. I think I woke him up, one of them anyway, and I asked him how he's doing. Fine. They were about 9 reported deaths. The last count I heard was 22 now. I don't know if that's for the overall, whether that's over going east over toward Cookville. I spoke to a gentleman that lived there too, and he was fine. But we want to keep the residents of the Nashville metropolitan area and all in our prayers, because I can remember, I'm reflecting here, we're already running late. I'm going to talk a little here. I remember one time there was watching the coverage of a potential tornado in Nashville, and I happened to be on the phone with this gentleman. This has probably been 15, 20 years ago, but I commented how odd it was that large cities somehow don't get tornadoes going right through the middle of them. I don't know why. I said, but it just happens. You don't hear that often. So I mean, this has caused a tremendous amount of destruction and devastation to the city itself, not just the suburbs and what have you like that. That maybe the tornadoes wear themselves out before they get to the downtown areas. But our hearts and our prayers need to go out to the folks that are having, as well as other areas where we have problems. But it's something we need to keep in our mind. Keep thinking about those folks. Well, you know, I'm going to throw a ringer in tonight. Okay? No, I'm not either. We're not, we're,
Skip around?
I was thinking about skipping around, but I'm trying to figure out where if I did what I was going to do, that would leave Bob adjourning, and I know that would upset Mindy tremendously. So, Brad, I'm going to go to the opening comments, director comments. Start with you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, but due to my sense of humor that as a former Marine and fireman may have been a little abrasive for some folks, I will yield the remainder of my time to whoever you choose next, sir. I was hoping it would be Director Hunt because of my, stunt last.
Hey, I'm the
board
one that
meeting.
called her Wendy, so what can I say? Okay.
So I will yield my time to whoever is
Next.
You choose next.
It'll
Yes,
be
sir.
Marla. We'll go in order around the clock, and Mindy gets to do the closing.
I
Again.
just have a few comments. I want to let the public know that the high school is offering a program called Hidden in Plain Sight. They're bringing in a trailer that is set up like a teenager's bedroom. They walk the families in groups through and show them signs for drug abuse, depression. There's 100 different things they show you in that trailer. They are going to offer the tours in English and in Spanish. There will be free child care for children ages 4 to 11. They're also offering a meal. This will be March the 10th from 5:30 to 7:30. They are making some arrangements for pastors and city officials, anybody that wants to go through early. And I'm going to go through it, and I'll let you all know how it is. But I'm excited. I think this is something, grandparents that are raising teenagers, it's a different world than when you raised your children. So it's free, and I think it would be very beneficial. You can get a hold of the school at the Panther Wellness Clinic, and they can give you more information. Also, I just wanted to say I'm having nightmares about the East Main project. And I've made a list of things, and I just want to share in each of my director's reports a little bit about what I'm feeling and what I've heard. I want to make a comment real quick just about the meetings. When the meetings were set up and the choices were made, there were, I think, 3 choices of different plans. Well, there wasn't a blank board for those that didn't like any of it. So we need to accommodate on our other things a blank board for something that is not offered. Sometimes the choices we're given is not what the public is wanting. And that's all.
Thank you, Marla. Lisa?
I should have mentioned this earlier, but I think we ran out of time during our workshop. I've had some requests that the meeting that we had with the directors be put on, because it was recorded. They wanted to know if they could add it to the meetings online so that they could hear for those that were out of town. I said I didn't know. I'd look into it.
We will look into it. I suspect it probably is a very ineligible recording because of just one recorder being there, but I'll listen to it and see if it's legible.
Okay. That was just a request. And on the registration to vote, you can look online. A lot of people think that they're registered to vote, and they're not. If you do not vote in 2 presidential elections, you're no longer a registered voter. So you might want to check that out if you haven't voted in a while. Go online and make sure that you're still eligible to vote. And it's almost spring. It's beautiful outside, so good.
Carol?
Well, my heart is with everyone in Nashville, too. Tornadoes, as we all know, are very devastating. Is Lake Francis closed again now? Did it open back up? I know it was open, but I thought they were working
Would
on
be
it.
closing it temporarily to do some final touching, but it's probably opened up now.
It's
And
open
then
now.
The last, we've got some work that we need to do on either side of the curb and the sidewalk. And then the last thing staff is going to do is close it for a couple of days to lay down the last lift of asphalt.
Okay. I thought I saw them doing some work, so I wasn't quite sure. I didn't see any barricades.
When I drove by it at noon, they were out there, but I didn't see it being closed.
Okay. And I'm going to talk about East Main Street. Main Street has received a $10,000 grant, and they had already received a $12,000 grant from the Arbest Foundation, and it's a matching grant, and they're going to use this for the mural somewhere downtown on East Main. I can't tell you where it is. I think they know where it is, but they haven't released that information yet. So I'm kind of excited about that because we've thought about that for a long time. Also, Main Street is having their main event, and it's Friday, April the 3rd. So if you would like to go and want tickets, get in touch with Main Street. The museum is also on a membership drive. Everybody seems to really be interested in the museum, so get your membership, support the museum. Excuse me. That's it. I'm having a hard time. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Carol. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got probably everybody in Siloam got one of these, watch out for shady deal, brochures. If you didn't, what it's doing is cautioning people about signing up for what's alleged to be an addendum to the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery. It is not. They want you to sign a petition. And the only thing I can tell people about signing petitions, just make sure you read what you're signing. Because, everything that's green isn't grass necessarily, so you need to check those things out. If it goes through, will do just the reverse of that. It'll take money away from the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery and send it into another state. So just be careful of what you're signing when you're signing petitions. That's all I have.
Mindy?
Could I request that someone take Director Burns' phone from him before I start? Just kidding. At least he called it a stunt, right?
Carla has it.
Okay, just kidding. Someone mentioned spring. Lisa mentioned spring. I think this is spring forward weekend. I think we set our clocks forward this weekend, so I want to remember that. Thank you, Lisa, again for starting the ball rolling with Coffee with the Board and planning the first one and letting us come on board with that. I appreciate that we were able to have a meeting today and talk about how we can move forward with that. I think Director Smiley's comment was our citizens are our most important aspect, and I'm going to change that aspect word to resource. Asset. Okay, asset. But resource as well. So our citizens are our most important asset and resource. And that is a good way to hear from them through these meetings. Thank you, Jason Wilkie, for the positive words about the City Planning Commission and the Planning Department and electric departments. It's always good to hear the positive words of encouragement. Sometimes it's easy to focus on the negative things, but those positive things we know are very true as well. So thank you. Thank you to the city staff for looking into the issue with the sewer line and trash issues on Elgin Street. That was something that was brought up at the Coffee with the Board meeting. I think the trash issue has definitely been resolved, and we are hoping that some repairs they did to the sewer line will correct the issues that the resident was having. That's yet to be determined, but they're pretty confident it will. And then also thanks for scheduling a time to repair the big dip at the intersection of Tahlequah and Maple. And that's all I have. So let's see. I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right. She got it, Bob. She got it. All right.
I'm learning.
We have a motion and a second that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Woo pig.